What is going on, everyone? Hopefully you all are having a great day. I absolutely am. Today we're out here in the garden talking about strawberries and what to do with strawberry runners at the end of the season. Now this is kind of an ongoing continuation into our ongoing series on strawberry preparation for winter. Now a lot of you have probably seen the remineralization and the fertilization of strawberries for winter. That's a video we've done on in the past. You can easily search for that and find it. But this one is going to be on what to do with runners, because oftentimes people get conflicting stories. Someone says, don't prune the runners, they're needed for next year's fruit production. Some say leave them on until the spring, then prune them off, because that way they can have energy from the mother plant to survive the winter. Other people say prune them off as soon as they occur, because all they do is steal money. They're not robbers. They steal energy from the mother plant. And so there's three different stories there. And then there's a fourth one, which is wait till the runner starts producing roots, then transplant it. And then what will happen is you can have multiple plants and the strawberry runner will produce its own roots and its own time. It will overwinter just like a regular strawberry plant would. And you can have the mother plant conserving energy for winter. And that is the method that I choose. Now, all of the methods are correct. That's what's weird, okay? That's what's really strange, is that there's never a really tried and true way to grow strawberries. And one of the biggest things with strawberries is that they are perennials. And so the mother plants here behind us that produced fruit and flowers and things like that, they also will produce runners to continue their offspring. What will happen is that the plant will still produce next year if you choose not to take off the runners, but the fruit will be smaller and the amount of flowers will be smaller. True, you'll have two plants that both will eventually flower and fruit, but the size and yield on both of those plants will be less than a really healthy individual plant. So you can choose that other route, but you limit your fruit production and fruit size. Another thing is if you choose to remove the suckers the following spring, which also is still will work, you do run the risk of the mother plant not surviving, because what will happen is the energy from the mother plant will be transferred to keep the non-rooted runner alive, and all of that energy will be going to keep another plant alive versus the mother plant. Now you will have in the spring a ready-to-root runner plant that will then produce fruit and flowers either that year or next year when the plant becomes more mature. But you do sacrifice the mother plant, which I also don't like. Again, not that it doesn't work, it's just not a method I choose. And so what we're going to do is we're going to choose the method that has positively worked for me, because I've been doing it for 5 or 6 years now, and I've had amazing success with it. So what you want to do is you want to simply, nearing the end of the growing season, once the runners have become well rooted into the soil, you want to take them, cut them, and transplant them. They will then have enough time, hopefully about 20 to 30 days, to get well established in the soil, where they will then overwinter and grow in the spring. You will have some loss, okay? I'm not saying you won't have any loss, but you'll have some loss that might not have a well-established enough root system. They might just die because they die, and that's what happens when you clip them from the mother plant too soon. But it's basically an umbilical cord. And if you have a fully established, ready-to-go plant, I would rather take that plant and save the mother plant, which can also produce fruit and flowers next year. So that's why I choose to do those. Now, what I will say is that this also does another thing. It allows you to have optionality with your beds. Let's say these plants here are running the course of their life. That's about 3 to 4 years. After 3 to 4 years, you want to remove these original plants because their production will slow down over time. And so what you can do is you can essentially move your bed, right? So when I want to change this bed over to something else in about 3 to 4 years, I want a whole new bed to move them over to. And if I simply leave the runners there with the mother plants, it becomes over time a big jumbled up mess, and you don't really know what's a mother plant, what's an established plant, what's fruiting, what's not. Whereas I can simply take all the runners from this year, move them over to that bed, and simply say, okay, next year in the spring, I'm ripping up everything else that's remaining here, or I can rip it up in the fall if I want to. And that way I know what's a new plant versus what's an old plant. And so I can better increase my production and utilize my space more effectively. So let's get into it. I hope you all are following me thus far, but as always, if you have any comments, leave them in the comments box below. Any questions, leave them in the comments box below. That's what it's there for. I don't want anyone to feel confused, but I wanted to run through all the different kind of scenarios and thoughts that people have about growing strawberries, because I don't want people to think that they're wrong. And I don't want people to think that I'm, calling someone a liar, because they all really do work. It's just all about your personal preference. So if what I do resonates with you, follow it. All right, let's get into it. So as you can see, this strawberry bed has become very overgrown. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to find kind of a plant. Now, some of these have produced runners and those runners have rooted, okay? This is kind of chaos, and I wish I would have done this a little bit sooner before they became so well rooted. But also, this will help you in the long run, because these are really well-established runners that will have a better chance of surviving the winter once you cut the umbilical cord. So what you want to do is simply start pulling up these runners here. You can see this plant produced 2 whole new plants. Clip that off there. And what we'll do is we'll take this plant, we'll set it in the ground. Now this plant might survive, it might not survive. I don't know. Those roots are not very well established, but they are roots nonetheless, and it may survive. So we're simply going to gather up all the runners. These ones have a little bit longer root system there, probably a better chance of surviving, but either way, we'll throw them all in the soil. And then the next thing that we will do is we will mulch them. That is a super critical component to our method here. So you'll notice, look at how well established this runner is, right? But it still is not as established as a fully grown mother plant. And so this thing is ready to rock. I mean, this thing is geared up and ready to go, but it's still, number one, has been ripped up from the ground. So it definitely is going to go through some stress. And it also is not as established as its mother plant is. And so we are going to need to mulch this to protect it all that much more throughout winter. And that's really going to help you give that upper hand on getting more to survive throughout the winter. And this is why strawberries can become very invasive. Keep them in check, they will go nuts.